Welcome to the Midwest Blitz. It's college football comfort food for the Midwest soul. Now, here are your hosts, Coach Drew and Big Nick.
Fine. Welcome to another edition of the Midwest Blitz. It's Army-Navy week.
Yup. Before we get to the most special rivalry in college football, we talk about Michigan-Ohio State as being the best rivalry, but the most special is Army versus Navy. After we talk about the Black Knights against the Midshipmen, a rivalry special to my heart, and Drew's here on the Midwest Blitz, we have some coaching news for you. Sherrone Moore is apparently under arrest. He was fired earlier today. You guys maybe already heard that. We're going to give you our thoughts on breaking news after we talk about the Army-Navy game. And we're going to talk about Penn State finally finding a coach in Matt Campbell. And I think that that's a pretty good situation for the Nittany Lions. You know what we have for Army-Navy week, Coach Drew?
What do we have for Army-Navy, Nick?
We have rivalry letters, Coach Drew. And rivalry letters are our favorite thing to do here on the Midwest Blitz. I like to get the fans closer together and see if they can find some common ground before they go into their yearly battle. Our first letter is from Navy M, who writes, "Dear Army fans, I know we've had our differences in the past, us being the GOAT versus you being an ass," a reference to their mascots, Coach Drew, is probably the biggest difference. Not all of us can be the ones to suffer through all those gray, ugly days at the West Point Penitentiary. So thank you, Army folks, for taking one for the team. It's times like this that remind me how grateful I am to never have to Uber or hitchhike an hour just to get a decent night out with my commandants and fellow midshipmen. M's giving it to him pretty hard, Coach Drew. God, I love Annapolis, M writes, and just when I think it can't get any better, I'm reminded how good it felt to celebrate beating Army last year in our very own DTA with the best fans around. No one rides for their team like the midshipmen at Acme, the bartenders at O'Brien's, or the older gentlemen at McGarvey's. Shout out to McGarvey's. I wonder what it felt like when Navy had their 14-game winning streak, Army fans. I have a feeling I won't have to wonder for long after last year's game, LOL. I hope your boys scheduled a massage for Sunday because Saturday, your Army ass is going to take quite a beating courtesy of Blake Horvath and the midshipmen. Go Navy. Signed, respectfully yours, respectfully, of course, Navy M. Coach Drew, this is, like I said, the most special rivalry in all of college sports. The thing about Army and Navy fans is that after the game, they actually do love and respect each other, unlike most of the other rivalry letters that we talk about. Fun to get to these. I think that my representative from the Black Knights, though, I am not a West Point graduate. I'm sure most of you could tell that from 10 miles away, but I do have family that went to West Point, and we had a friend who's a graduate of West Point that wrote a letter to the show, Coach Drew. You want to go on to that?
Yeah, let's go over to that.
Sorry, hold on. It's hard not to laugh while I read these. Okay, so a letter from a first lieutenant in the United States Army who is a West Point grad, but I will not name here for security purposes. First Lieutenant of the United States Army writes, "Dear Navy fans, I thought it was embarrassing enough that we stole the Navy goat one time from your premises in the last 4 years, but you let us do it twice within a 4-year period, which is truly embarrassing." I have visual evidence of this, Coach Drew.
Did you say a goat was stolen?
An actual goat. The Navy mascot, the goat, was stolen by Army cadets. Allegedly, I wasn't there, but allegedly in the last 4 years, it's been stolen twice. Army lieutenant continues to write, "Maybe you stick to boat security instead of goat security, or maybe not." Remember when we stole your superintendent's boat and took it for a booze cruise up the Hudson River? That was great. I thought boat security was supposed to be your specialty. She goes on to write, "A truly unfortunate situation, just like losing half of the Army-Navy games you guys were required to go to, so they had to ride a bus to the game, whether it was home, away, or neutral site. Just like losing half the games you were required to be at, I'll bet those bus rides were a really long ride home. Naval Academy class of 2025. Anyway, I know this game means a lot to you guys, and it would mean a lot to me too if all I had to look forward to after graduation was sitting on a boat in the middle of the ocean with a bunch of dudes for 6 months at a time. It's gross and kind of weird. If you ever want to come see what real warfighters do, the Army does kiddie tours once in a while. I'm sure we could find some crayons for the Marines. I know they get really bored when they're required to use more than 2 brain cells at the same time. I will give the Navy credit for one thing, though. You do have the Navy SEALs on your team, and that's pretty damn cool. And MARSOC. Whatever the heck they do, I'm not really sure. But even our Army B team, the Army Rangers, have more movies made about them than your A team, the SEALs. Sorry, SEAL Team 6. No one cares about how you blow up boats where nobody's watching. That's not me saying that. This is an Army person saying it. Don't come after me, Navy SEALs. I'm just a college football podcaster. She goes on to write, anyways, good luck next year. I don't think it's really going to help you, though. Go Army, beat Navy. Your dearest of friends. First Lieutenant, name omitted for security reasons, United States Army. King of Battle. Curry the fuck up. Thank God for dog. Written by First Lieutenant of the United States Army. Coach Drew, you gotta love the Army-Navy game, man. It's the most underappreciated event in all of American sports. If you, some of you younger guys, if you wonder, and for the older guys, older than me, if you wonder or wish for the old days where college athletes played for scholarships and school pride before NIL, before kids getting paid to play ball in college, this is the game for you. This truly is the closest thing you could get to, and I mean this in the best way possible. It's almost like a high school rivalry game where they're like crosstown rivals, and even if both teams hadn't won a game all year, which is not the case, Army is 6-5, and Navy had a great year at 9-2 behind quarterback Blake Horvath. But even if both teams hadn't won a game or both teams were undefeated, it doesn't matter. It still means a lot to them, and they bring the energy on the field and the spectacle. For those of us who truly love football and those who appreciate people who serve in the military is really special. So I'm really happy and appreciative that we got letters from 2 graduates of the respective academies. I want to give a little round of applause for them. Thank you for writing. The rivalry at West Point was started by a cadet who wanted to start a football team. So Navy had a football team starting in 1879. This was 1890, and Army still didn't have one. And most colleges, big schools at least, had college football teams at this point. This kid basically tricked the people in charge of West Point into starting a team by writing letters to provoke a rivalry that didn't exist yet and provoke school pride for the academy at West Point to get them to agree to have this football rivalry. So the first game was played in 1890. There's so much to go over in terms of fun history. This is not like just sports history, but history between the academies. They're stealing each other's boats, stealing each other's goats. There's all kinds of other shenanigans that have happened over the decades and decades since this rivalry started. 1908, a general and an admiral almost fought a duel. I believe that game was played in Philadelphia. Correct me if I'm wrong on that in the comments section, you military veterans. But in 1908, there was almost a duel fought, so they suspended the rivalry shortly. Coach Drew, what did we find out that in 1904, a kid actually died of a broken neck during this game? So there's been actual wars fought on the football field during Army, Navy, and that's not what we want to see. We don't want to see student athletes anywhere, especially service academy kids, be injured to that extent. But I mean, this rivalry is real. It's so fun to read about, and the history lesson that we did today in studying it, we're going to do a show in the off season where we highlight the entire history of Army, Navy and some other legendary college football teams, but it really is special. I mean, there's Congressional Medal of Honor award winners, Heisman Trophy winners. Roger Staubach won the Army-Navy game for Navy the week that John F. Kennedy was killed at what became Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia. Soldier Field in Chicago was rededicated in its second year of existence to be named Soldier Field. It had a different name before that when Army and Navy played their first game in the Midwest there, which had over 100,000 people there, which solidified in 1925 or 1926 that the Army-Navy game was a national institution and not just an Ivy League adjacent game played on the East Coast. So that brought Army-Navy into the national consciousness. It's a great recruiting tool now for Army and Navy. And just on a weekend where it's the only college football game played, and I hope it stays that way for the rest of eternity, or at least as long as there's America and as long as there's college football. I hope this game gets its own spotlight on a special weekend. A lot of changes in college football, but that's something we got to keep the same. Really fun to look back on the history and see the enthusiasm from midshipmen and Black Knight graduates. Coach Drew, got anything to add?
Yeah, that's awesome. About like 10 to 12 years ago, I was at a ceremony, high school ceremony for graduates, and what ended up happening was one of the people was going to become a cadet. So they brought in somebody to talk to the school's Army guy, and he literally ends his speech by "Go Army, beat Navy." I mean, he didn't have to say that to anybody. Predominantly, my family has served in the Army. I'm the first one that hasn't served in the like 3 or 4 generations that have been doing this. My uncles have served in all the wars of recent past. Most of them Army, but we do have some Navy people. So every time we get together, every two years and do like a family gathering, there is definitely some Army Navy chatter. There is. They will remind you what happened on that gridiron. Now, the Army and Navy, they're not going to go out and wrestle and tussle. They let the football players do that. That's what we're going to see this weekend. You know, some people corrected us earlier this year and told us that they went away from their traditions of doing certain formations. But I like to beg to differ. As not being a stat nerd, as stats get thrown away in these games, the quarterbacks are both the leading rushers in rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, both teams still run some version of the triple option, at least as part of their offense. Navy's Blake Horvath is a great passer, Coach Drew, and was a Heisman candidate earlier in the season, but we did have somebody tell us Navy doesn't even run the triple option anymore. And I was like, yeah, they do, dumbass. We watch football here. We don't just, I don't know what you do, watch ESPN. This is going to be fun. This is always a smash mouth game. So in their last games, Army beat UTSA 27-24. UTSA was really strong early in the season. They have an NFL running back on their team, but the Army Black Knights are getting 6 points in this game that will be played at Gillette Stadium, home of the New England Patriots, to the 9-2 Navy team, who in their last game beat Memphis, another quality American Conference team. The American Conference is really strong this year, Coach Drew. Obviously, Tulane ended up making the college football playoff. But so Navy beat Memphis 28-17 their last time out. I've got to say, and I'm glad that you gave me foreshadowing, but I've got to say, with family that went to West Point, go Army, beat Navy. All the respect to the Navy people, but I think Army's due for one. They had a rough go of it last year. And the thing in this game, Drew, it carries on the idea or the cliche that in this rivalry game, records don't matter and upsets do happen. And it's a physical game. And just like other big time rivalry games that happen at the end of the year, that these teams game plan for each other all season long. So even if one team might have a better quarterback, might have more talent, this, that, or the other, the wrinkles that come in game planning and just the passion of the players and the emotions that ride high result in some really exciting finishes. I think Army's due for a win, Coach Drew.
Well, I will say we have to talk about the uniforms too now. Don't let us forget about that. The Army's riding with the 250-year anniversary of our country uniforms. And so the Army's riding high with the 250 years of the fighting spirit since 1775. They're wearing clean white jerseys. Reminds you of the Patriots. You said they're at Gillette. I think that rhymes on it. Maybe they just come out with Patriots helmets. Nah, I'm just kidding. They wouldn't do that. But, I mean, they are wearing those. Now, I will say, if we were to do a show in the off season where we rank the all-time Army and Navy uniforms, this one's not my favorite. Now, I wanted the Big Red. I wanted the 101st Airborne. I wanted a lot of different ones. This is actually for sports collecting. I like collecting sports gear. I've actually always, like, after, like, they play, I'm like, I'm going to go get an Army jersey. Or I'm going to get a Navy jersey. These are some badass. They put a lot of effort and time into these. The Navy ones, I was watching a video of it earlier. Each helmet takes 4 hours to make, ladies and gentlemen. 4 hours. The details, they're representing the shipmen, the ships that fought and protected our sides for the longest time, our east and west coast. This game means a lot. And again, just like we alluded to earlier, it doesn't matter what DraftKings says. It doesn't matter what Hard Rock Cafe says. It doesn't matter what any of these places say. Because when that ball gets dropped in there and the President of the United States is there, and all the cadets are there, all fired up. I always find it interesting when they're wearing their like peacocks and they look all like spiffy. I'm like,
Yeah.
damn, our military looks good.
They do. Yeah, a lot to be excited about. A lot of different kind of fun on the gridiron on Saturday, Coach Shro. We definitely want to highlight this, and reading the letters from the graduates of the respective academies is always fun. So thank you guys for writing in. Let's move on to some coaching news. We want good news, bad news, Coach Shro.
All right, well, we'll start with good news because the bad news, I feel like there's a lot happening, and I feel like as we drag it out into the late night, we can figure out maybe some more news comes out from the bad stuff.
Yeah,
But let's
this
start
is
with the good news.
literally breaking news on the bad news story. This is good news, Penn State fans. You got Matt Campbell, and a lot of people have tried to poach Matt Campbell away from Iowa State. And honestly, at this late point in the process, I didn't think Penn State was going to get Matt Campbell. NFL teams have tried to get Matt Campbell. A lot of other college teams have tried to get Matt Campbell. Here's what I'll say about Matt Campbell. Number one, he's a program builder. Iowa State was not doing that well. Iowa State has a passionate fan base, but has not always been a football powerhouse. And he's been able to do better there in the last 10 years than anybody ever has before. The resources and brand name of Penn State will definitely be an upgrade compared to what Matt Campbell has had to work with in the past. Granted, playing the Big Ten is a tougher arena, but I've seen Matt Campbell in some games from a coaching side, from a strategy side, pull out wins against, per se, rival Iowa, who we're a big fan of here on the Midwest Blitz. We love people from Iowa. People from Iowa hate people from Iowa State. We say that every time. I love both fan bases, but Matt Campbell's been able to pull out close wins. Off's getting me.
You're good.
Matt Campbell's a guy that helps you pull out close wins in rivalry games, and even in games where maybe you have equal or lesser talent. Good clock manager, good play caller, good strategist. I'm also a big fan of this press conference that he had where, Drew, he was crying tears of joy, and some people might make fun of that. He's a guy from Ohio whose dad grew up playing against Todd Blackledge, the legendary, now analyst, who I like a lot, but legendary Penn State quarterback Todd Blackledge. And he was just, tears of joy talking about how his dad played against Todd Blackledge, and he always looked up to Joe Paterno in the tradition of Penn State, of physicality, of toughness, of heart. And that is what Penn State football and the people of West Pennsylvania who love Penn State. I've never been to the college, but I had friends from there, and I did travel up to that part of the country, Hopewell and Aliquippa. That is football country. That's old school coal mining country. That's something else that Matt Campbell talked about, was his great grandfather was a coal miner. So he does have a kinship with the program in addition to being one hell of a football coach. I would be very excited about this. At this late point in the process, I'm surprised that they got Matt Campbell. I think contract negotiations were a big part of that. Penn State basically has no recruiting class from high school coming in for the 26th class, which is this graduating class right now. So they gave Matt Campbell an extra year. Usually a 7-year contract would be standard. They gave him an 8-year contract, in my interpretation, to give him an extra year to recruit and build up. And Coach Drew brought up a great point to me, that is Matt Campbell going to be able to bring guys from Iowa State with him to Penn State, and or bring in other quality Big 12 recruits that maybe he lost out on, but are now ready to hit the portal and looking to move to the Big 10 to maybe make a name for themselves in their NFL draft prospect status and all these types of things. This is, Drew, honestly, the best case scenario for Penn State right now. I mean, we really, as a neutral observer, I was pretty worried about Penn State and where they were going to go from here. I was almost worried that they might have to hire another interim coach for next year, kind of like Stanford did this year with Frank Reich. And Penn State fans, I do not want to compare Stanford football to Penn State football in any way, shape, or form. I'm not ignorant, but you guys were, you were up Schitt's Creek without a paddle what feels like 5 minutes ago. Now you got Matt Campbell. I'd be smiling while I was sipping my beer tonight if I was a Penn State fan, Coach Shro.
Well, if you play the percentages and the odds, they always make fun of that one dude for always trying to talk to people above their weight as far as like their looks. So let's just put it in simpler terms. Guy goes up to 20 hot chicks, they all say no. But if one says yes, they're in.
Then you're Penn State.
Yeah, Penn State flirted with all the top beautiful girls. Now, well, the good news is he's an established coach who's won at Iowa State. So it's not like they're just picking up some random guy. He's coming over,
Right.
like you said, he has an inside for the pack, for the Big 12. He's in the Big 10 now. You have We have a lot of people hitting the transfer portal. Honestly, we were talking about this. Half of his team is leaving because either graduating or they're going to the draft or they're too old to play, right? Like those are three things that are playing here. And that's why a lot of people picked Penn State earlier in the season. That's why I picked Penn State to win the national championship or at least be
I
in
picked him to win the
contention,
Big Ten.
you know. But now you're looking at it and it's almost like a clean state. They have a lot of freshmen and sophomores. It looks like we were doing some inside work here. Iowa State's younger guys, they're freshmen, and freshman red shirts are leaving. They're not staying at Iowa State. So I'm assuming they're going to go to Penn State. Some of them are. Not all of them, probably some of them. And the reason why I say that is because those guys they weren't bought into the whole Iowa State process. They were bought into the coaching process. That happens a lot. If you go somewhere because of a coach, and that's one thing, guys, you guys have to realize. A lot of you guys hate NIL, but being a former college player and understanding what other players have gone through, even myself, about wanting to go different places and the complexity of it. Back in the day, your coach had to approve you leaving. So you almost get stuck in like where you sign a letter of intent as hell, and nobody tells you that. Now there's a backdoor and exit, and it is what it is, because then even if you make the college football playoff, you're allowed to leave and go coach another program.
Well,
without repercussions.
It makes it more fair for the players, Coach Drew, because they can get out when their coach leaves and follow that coach or choose another program, and it makes it way
which is fair.
Yes, it makes it way easier right now for a Penn State or in Indiana last year to start from scratch and build something constructive. And I hope that gives the Penn State fans hope that your program, you probably won't be a favorite to win the Big Ten next year like you were this year, but you can still have a hell of a team with a coach like Matt Campbell. He brings in some Iowa State guys and then brings in some other guys that he recruited that didn't go with him to Iowa State for whatever reason who have hit the portal. I think this is the absolute best possibility for a Penn State quick rebuild right now, which looked really gloom and doom a couple of weeks ago. And me and Drew have been talking for a couple of weeks as the season wrapped up. We covered a lot of Penn State early, and then when things kind of fell apart after they fired James Franklin, we're like, gee, we haven't heard much from the Penn State people, so hopefully you guys get back on board with the Midwest Blitz. I know you guys had a rough year, but this is really, really great news for you guys, and we're happy for you.
Having a coach like that, you can go out and get players like Notre Dame recent transfer quarterback Mich, who potentially would get a target if he doesn't want to keep his guy. You have CJ Baxter out of Texas. He's another young talent that's left. I mean, we're going to be following the transfer portal. Not now. We're in bowl season, ladies and gents. If something major happens, like something's cooking in Nebraska, it's getting weird over there.
Yeah. Speaking of transfer portal quarterbacks.
Yep. So we are tracking some stuff. We're trying to like figure out what they're doing over there. When you fire someone's uncle and then their brother transfers out, I mean, you could fill in the blanks. There's something that's going on.
Drew is referencing Dylan Raiola, quarterback at Nebraska, who we've liked all year. His uncle was the offensive line coach, the brother of his father. Dylan Raiola's little brother was a quarterback who decommitted a few weeks ago. And I think that's because they knew that the offensive line coach, who is Raiola's uncle, has left. So we don't know if Dylan Raiola is going to transfer, but it's just a possibility. The Raiola family clearly seems to be at odds with Nebraska right now. Could be bad news for Nebraska fans who we've had great interactions with here on the Midwest Blitz. But I think Kenny Minchey from Notre Dame, he's already in the portal. He'd be a great pickup. Kenny Minchey's a good athlete, solid quarterback. He got beat out by CJ Carr, who's had a great year at Notre Dame. I think for possibly the reason that this is what I was told in school, Coach Drew. Hey, Nick, if you're a junior and this kid's a sophomore or a freshman and we think you guys are equal, we're going to play the younger guy because we think he'll develop. And CJ Carr's developed nicely this year from Notre Dame. But nobody in the Notre Dame program has a bad thing to say about Kenny Minchey. I could see Kenny Minchey being a real good pickup as a quarterback for Penn State.
Yeah, there's a lot of good things to do for Penn State. It's definitely something we're tracking. They definitely, and like I said too, they have an established head coach who's had success. That makes it easy. They needed this guy. They needed him. Penn State needed him more than the other way around.
More than he needed them, and I think that hopefully for Penn State, that makes him the man for the job. And he understands the pressure that's coming with it because he grew up following Penn State his whole life. So, yeah, congratulations, Penn State.
Congratulations. I'm curious of how many 3-stars are left. I know the 4 or 5 stars are more likely gone, and he's not going to get any of those cats. But I'm curious to see how many 3-2 stars he can get to really move up their standings. It's going to be interesting because we're going to be definitely looking over where their star potential is. We use that with air quotes
Can he
because we
do a
know that could be.
Signetti? Can he do a Signetti and pull some guys out of the G5? Obviously, Signetti came from a G5, but even this year, Signetti found Stephen Daly from Toledo, a MAC school, who apparently is now out for the college football playoff, by the way, in case you guys didn't realize that.
North Dakota, South Dakota, maybe Illinois State.
Yeah,
Illinois
man.
State upstated them.
The talent is out there. And Signetti's proven it in Indiana. So if you're a Penn State fan, there's no reason to think that you guys can't at least build something respectable next year that could build into a powerhouse the next year. Coach Shro, we want to head to the school up north. We got some bad news for Michigan fans. We said we were going to do good news, bad news. This is the bad news portion of the program. Shocking to me, I was leaving the gym, headed to the grocery store today, and Coach Shro sent me a text, Michigan coach fired. I'm like, who, the volleyball coach? He's like, no, stupid, Google it. Sherrone Moore was let go today abruptly and officially by the University of Michigan. He was fired for an inappropriate relationship with a staffer. We found that out at first. Then Moore was detained is the word they use, by police. Now we found out that Sherrone Moore is actually in jail in Michigan. So for those of you who want to play lawyers on television like me, detained is what happens at a traffic stop. Arrested is what happens when your ass is in jail. So Sherrone Moore has been arrested, and I'm not mocking his plight, but I just want to clarify for anybody that hasn't figured it out. He was definitely legitimately handcuffed, arrested, taken to jail. We've heard a lot of rumors about why that might be. We're not going to speculate because we don't want to get sued. We can't afford to get sued. But a lot of rumors going around out there, and like some sources that I trust, some of those rumors appear to be true. Okay, Drew, I'll just stop right there. But so where does Michigan go from here, which is an open-ended question? Well, Michigan State just got Pat Fitzgerald, the former Northwestern coach, who I think the world of, who was exonerated and won a counter lawsuit for his firing at Northwestern. So he's a real smash mouth type of coach who I think will fit in at Michigan State. Michigan's out in the cold ahead of their skis with no coach, while Michigan State just upgraded. There's also rumors about Underwood going in the transfer portal, which I won't confirm or deny, but this is kind of an off week for Big Ten news. So heard something about a guy from LSU, who had been in contact with him. And then already, Coach Drew, ESPN floating rumors that Kalen DeBoer, current Alabama head coach, could be the next coach at Michigan, which I'm not mocking you Michigan fans, but Kalen DeBoer is not leaving Alabama. He wasn't leaving Alabama for Penn State. He's not leaving Alabama for Michigan. But so we don't want to feed into the rumors too much. That's not really what we do here on the Midwest Blitz. We really hate covering these stories, but this is breaking news from this afternoon. We led with Army-Navy because that's a positive story, and we love college football, and we love to help you guys get festive around the holidays with the Army-Navy game and upcoming bowl games. But this Sherrone Moore thing is freaking crazy. Coach Drew texted me, Michigan coach fired. I was like, who, the volleyball coach? And I was like, holy shit, it's Sherrone Moore. I'll say this too, in case anyone thinks that I'm being flippant or whatever. Thoughts and prayers to Sherrone Moore. He's obviously having a bad day. I don't have anything against him personally, but some wild news that he's in jail and that some of the other stuff we're hearing, I'm like, God, I hope that's not true type of stuff. But all the God, I hope that's not true stuff initially was not that he was in jail, and then it was confirmed that he had been arrested, and I was like, oh, shoot. So I don't know. I would wish it away if I could, Michigan fans, but I can't. It happens. So
The chronological order was that he was having misconduct with a staffer, and that goes against Michigan's bylaws and policies. Fair enough. Then it went to, well, now he's in custody and is being detained, which then being detained to transfer to, there is a suspect for allegation of assault, and that's where it dies, because just like how I can't say certain things about this, and I can only report what I'm reporting via ESPN.
Quote, your source is ESPN, right, Coach Drew? So
Yep.
we're not making any of this up. Coach Drew's just reading off the ESPN website, America.
Yeah, so I'm not I'm not going in depth of it because we're gonna know about it in the next 48 hours. There's nothing to press about it. It's literally just fresh because we're recording on the day of, and we've been tracking it all day. I thought we initially heard Ohio State beat Michigan, they're gonna fire their head coach. And we all joked about that,
Of
not talking
course.
about what broke out. And then today we're, just going on in our business and we're like, head coach at Michigan fired. We're like, no way, they did not do that. And this comes in light. I thought it had to do in relations to what he said about Bryce Underwood and how bad they handled that situation this year. Because they said they're like, Morris said, I'm going to bring a new quarterback coach. We're going to do this. We're going to work on development. Again, not asking for an apology of Bryce Underwood, but your boy was here supporting you guys the whole time. So again, moving forward from the situation, we're not going to talk about it openly as much, but we do want to let you know that we're going to be trying to give you guys as much information as possible. The Bryce Underwood, I didn't hear a lot about, and big old BP is going to be the head coach. Because when Moore was suspended earlier this season, BP took over, and man, he's like the goat. Like if you know who I'm talking about, the head coach at Michigan, BP. But he's you look at him and he just looks like someone's dad or uncle that just is like, I'll coach the damn team, but in a good way. That's what he looks like.
He is that guy. They had to bring him in out of the bullpen once again. He was the head coach during the suspension earlier in the season. And I mean, as a program for Michigan, it's way better that you have somebody like that there who represents and loves the program, that can talk to recruits and talk to current players as we enter transfer portal season and all this stuff. Yeah, this is the most shocking football news of the week, and it's not the first shocking football news of the week, but I'd say it's the most shocking, Coach Drew. I was pretty shy. This sounds like the beginning of a Midwest goodbye, Coach Drew.
Yeah, it is. We're getting there.
Coach Drew was sitting on my couch Sunday at noon when they announced the playoff bracket, and they flip-flopped Notre Dame and Miami, and I was like, what? Like, my hair stood up, and Coach Drew was like, told you, Nick. And I was like, dang. I thought I was shocked then. Then the Matt Campbell hiring at Penn State was slightly below that, but I was still kind of surprised, like, hey, they landed a guy. Like, there's a guy, like a dude left. Like Drew said, you struck out with 20 hot chicks, but you finally got one to say yes. And then today, I'm thinking that the dust is settled and we're ready to prep for bowl games and college football playoff. And then we get a Sherrone Moore is fired, and then all this other unfortunate news about it, which, again, I'm not making light of it. I'm so shocked. I don't know how else to talk about it without kind of smiling, just out of, I don't know, I can cry or I can laugh. So I choose to laugh. Horrible, horrible situation for Michigan right now.
Well, there is a coach that's out there who could probably fill that spot for them if they really want to pull the trigger. He might not be. I think he.
Has he been into Bayou recently, Coach Drew?
Yeah, he been in the Bayou. I don't know how Michiganers talk. Is he just talk like Eminem? He's gonna start rapping really fast?
That is not how Michiganders talk outside of 8 Mile Road, Coach Drew. I have beautiful, wonderful neighbors, beautiful people across the hall from me from Michigan. My best friend from high school football is a coach and a Michigander. There are wonderful people from Coach Drew. They don't all talk like Marshall Mathers. I had to stand up for you Michigan people again. Coach Drew sometimes he likes to poke the Wolverine bear up there, the skunk bear, as Notre Dame fans call it.
Well, I assume not everybody talks like they're in the Bayou down in Louisiana now.
With their family.
With their family. You know, if I ever become a coach down at LSU, I'll be talking like this, because this is how they talk down in the family.
You know, if I was Coach Drew, if I got hired as the LSU coach right now, I'd say, man, when I walk in here, it makes me want to talk like Ed Orgeron. Oh, Tigers. Lane Kiffin is a D-bag of the highest order. That's an easy pivot out of this uncomfortable conversation. Let's pick on Lane Kiffin. We know ESPN won't do it, so, you know, you can hear that here on the Midwest Blitz. It makes me want to, he said that at the press conference, it makes me want to talk like Ed Orgeron. Now, I've always wanted to talk like Ed Orgeron just because I think he's freaking awesome and just a badass dude. But, you know, Lane Kiffin just discovered how cool Ed Orgeron's voice was when he got a $100 million paycheck from the state of Louisiana. Isn't it weird how that kind of money, it really shifts your perspective, doesn't it, Coach Drew?
Well, I will say this. When I was a kid, and this is like a long time ago, though, when you turn on ESPN back in the days, and I would see Lane Kiffin in front of like everything. And I'd be like, look, Lane Kiffin's going to LSU. Why does all these old people hate him? He's like a cool coach. And this is me referring to not knowing any better and just understanding that he is a coach, not one of our favorite coaches, but he's up there as far as talent. But
Yeah.
all I can think about is him hopping out of the old private jet at Ole Miss, flying over to LSU and dressing up in purple and going, when I'm down here, I just want to talk like Ed Algeron. And I'm just like, this dude is like evil. He got on a little plane.
I like to eat them crawdads.
Went to the local gas station in Ole Miss, hopped on a plane. I just
Gator
assumed
tails.
For whatever reason, there's a gas station. In my head, there was a gas station.
Did I mention crawdads?
And crawdads. And Lane Kiffin's like, can I use your jet back there? And he's like, well, sure. I don't know why that's what Mississippi's like. I have been to Mississippi, but this is just me making up what I think Mississippi's like. And he just gets on his private jet.
What do you think it feels like, Coach Shro, to board an outbound private jet in the state of Mississippi headed for the state of Louisiana while villagers follow you with torches, pitchforks, and throw tomatoes at you? Maybe you should text Lane Kiffin and ask him. I know you guys are close.
He's going to be playing one of his games next year at Ole Miss as an LSU coach. Michigan has to go to Ohio State next year.
I don't want to wish this season away. It's been a beautiful season as an Indiana fan.
Very
Coach
beautiful.
Shro's on the beautiful, huge, big league. Coach Shro's on the Indiana bandwagon. I want you guys to give him a round of applause there. He's looking really good in his Indiana cream and crimson right now after the committee shafted Notre Dame the other day. But that Ole Miss
Dame
LSU
has Miami
game,
at home.
Notre Dame, Miami at home. That is, I already have my calendar marked for multiple games for next season.
Pay-per-view next year, multiple weeks.
Dude, I would pay pay-per-view to watch those games if I had to. That might make me a schmuck.
Paramount's a pay-per-view now.
You'd be down here on my couch watching it.
My Midwest conspiracies that we're going back to cable with extra steps. They're all buying each other. At one point, they're going to tell us that they give us this box that could play all the videos and stream all the stuff.
Maybe you could buy a little disc to watch replays of it and insert it into your device. All right, Coach Shro. Saddest story of the week. This is a tough one. Notre Dame or Michigan? What's the worst story of the week right now? I think this could go either way.
Well, unlike some people, I'm more easily to move on because I accepted my faith in week 2. Everything that's panned out, I've expressed my feelings, and I moved on. I'm ready into the offseason for Notre Dame. It is what it is. Whatever people want to say, it is what it is, being a Pittsburgh, being a fan.
So worst news of the week is Michigan.
Yep. The only worst news could be is if Marcus Freeman goes to the Giants.
Or the Browns. He should go to the Jets because then he'd have Fernando Mendoza on his team next year.
He probably would like that. Going to the Jets. Yeah, Marcus Freeman, that's going to be interesting if Marcus Freeman does leave. I don't want him to leave.
Freeman's not leaving, Notre Dame fans, but I know some Notre Dame fans like to hear us talk about that because they won't stop talking about it.
Somebody said that Notre Dame's not going to be kicked out of the college football playoff. It stood in the same chair you did for weeks. For weeks, you said that.
Okay, look. All right, I'm going to defend myself here, and I'm going to point a big old finger at the College Football Playoff Committee and the Atlantic Coast Conference. If they stuck to their original criteria, Notre Dame would be in the playoff right now. Notre Dame got shafted not because Miami can't win the argument of head-to-head matchup, but because the playoff committee told us one thing and then pulled the rug out from under us. It's like if the playoff committee was telling Notre Dame fans, not only is Santa Claus real, your presents are already under the Christmas tree, and then you woke up in the morning and the Grinch had stolen all your Christmas presents, and the Grinch being the College Football Playoff Committee. Yeah, I mean, that's why I thought Notre Dame was in, because based off the criteria, look, Coach Shro, I'm a ref, I'm an umpire. I believe in rules. I might be the last dumb bastard in this country that still believes in rules. Based off the rules that they laid out in their own words, Notre Dame 100% should have been in. That's not hate at Miami. That's not me being a Notre Dame fan. I support Notre Dame as part of the Midwest Blitz. My friends are Notre Dame fans. But what the committee said, based on that, Notre Dame should have been in. There's no way you flip 2 teams off a bye week and then blame it off a BYU team who's not in the same conference as Miami and not in the same conference as Notre Dame, because Notre Dame doesn't believe in conferences just like they don't believe in contraception. These are 3 unrelated situations. It's a triangle, Coach Shro. It's a triangle. You know what triangles lead to, Coach Shro? Conspiracies. And Notre Dame got absolutely fucked.
I'll be honest, this isn't the worst one they did.
Hell no, dude.
FSU being undefeated because their quarterback was injured. and they got kicked out with 4
I
teams.
talked to some Florida State fans. I was more mad about it than they were. They said, "Yeah, we'd have gotten our ass kicked anyway." It made me sad.
And they
What
did.
happened? It made me sad what happened to Florida State that year. Was that 2 years ago? 3 years ago? Goodness.
And
Man.
JMU playing Oregon, man. Dante Moore, top 5 quarterback, they're saying, coming out in the draft if he comes out.
I love Dante Moore. I'm not really sure about that. But
Ladies and gents, we will not have a podcast next year if Indiana wins the national championship, Francisco Mendoza wins Heisman, and goes overall #1 pick in the draft.
Fernando.
I think Nick's life would be fulfilled. And
I will retire from college football podcasting potentially if Indiana wins. I might cash that lottery ticket and go to Tahiti, Coach Drew, and eat some fajitas. Fajitas are not native to Tahiti, but I'll bet they'd make me one with all that money I'm going to cash in if Indiana wins the national championship.
Coach Nick, what do you want with your foods?
Happy ending, baby.
It'd be a great one, especially here on the Midwest Blitz.
Hey, thank you guys for joining us. We'll talk to you later. Hey, it's bowl season. If you don't like to watch holiday football, then stop listening to Midwest Blitz. We got plenty of games coming up. We're going to have gambling stats. We're going to have fun. We're going to have eggnog. We're going to have Santa hats. It's going to be a lot of shit going on you guys don't want to miss. Right, Coach Drew?
Yep, like Oklahoma kicking Alabama's ass, and then Miami getting blown up by Texas A&M in that order.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah? All right, see you guys later.
Later.